Welcome, everybody. This is the Phalcon PHP Community Hangout. It seems that my friends have not arrived yet, so I'm going to be talking about Phalcon up until somebody else comes up. We do have a small agenda to follow here, give you some news. And see how everybody responds and so on and so forth. You can always use our Q&A module. You can watch us on YouTube. This Hangout will be available after it's done in our YouTube channel. So very exciting news about Phalcon. We have a lot of activity in our forums and a lot of activity in our GitHub with commits, with NFRs, with bugs, with everything that we can think of. The particular project that started as a crazy idea from this guy in Colombia and his buddy, I'm talking about Eduard and Andres, actually did make a difference in people's lives, and definitely we are moving forward to make an even bigger difference and make the web faster without, of course, having to use a ton of resources in order to make your application fast. Now, don't get me wrong, a bad application is a bad application. We all have seen those. We all have our own programming styles, and as I always say, there's never the same solution for everything. You always have to look at your requirements and apply what is best for your application. But in all, you will see from our benchmark page and from your own experiences that Phalcon outputs a lot more with existing hardware than any other framework there is. So I see Davi is here. Hello, Davi. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a presentation that I created. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see. Yep.
Yep. Okay. I can see it.
All right, man. Thank you. So I have a small presentation, and I want to. It's just bullet points. I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page on what we are trying to do. So first of all, we are currently in 1.3.1. This is our latest version. There has been a request by one of the members of the community to put that in our website, so that the minute people visit the website, you can actually see what's the latest version, what you can do that. I have to admit I didn't have time to do this, but I will do that. It's an excellent idea. And also in the downloads page to let you guys know what is the latest and greatest. Now, we are working on 1.3.2. We're expecting that in the end of next month. Let me just end of next month, or a lot earlier. I'm talking about the end of May now. The only problems that we have with the versions and how we release is how much time we have to address all the security issues first, and then right after that, the very critical segmentation fault bugs, so that at least people can have a working version that they can rely on as far as security is concerned. With the latest news about the Heartbleed bug with OpenSSL and all that stuff, we have actually increased our focus on security rather than releasing something and having some kid that doesn't have much of a life ruining your site because they found an exploit. We are all humans. We do make mistakes. We're far from infallible, and the only way for us to know that we did something wrong is if we figure it out ourselves, or if somebody points it out, which point we rush to fix everything, as far as security is concerned, of course. So 1.3.2 is going to be released maximum by the end of next month. If we can release it earlier, we are going to do that. It's going to contain some security fixes, segmentation faults, and some bugs. Of course, all that is going to be in our changelog of the version. And the challenge that we have right now is how do we make sure that we don't duplicate work and we do not miss features. So what we're doing right now is anytime we have a particular bug fix, let's say Davi, for instance, issued a pull request for a fix that he managed to find, whether this is just a simple text change or it's a more significant bug. What we're doing is we're making sure that our tests pass and everything works fine in the 1.x version, but also we're taking that code and we're porting it to the 2.x version, because we're working on two versions right now in parallel. And this is the challenging part, because we don't want to miss something that has been included and fixes something serious or a bug or something like that, or provides some new feature in 2.0. So we don't want to have the repetition of bugs later on when we release 2.0. Now, where are we with 2.0? We are in early beta, as you all know. Some of us have already tested it, and it works fine. For the functionality that it's already there, it works the same. I haven't personally seen any problems. Some of the components are not 100%, some of the tests are not 100%. We do have a Progress 2.0 page in our wiki where we actually tell everybody where we are and what we need to do. Everybody is, of course, encouraged to contribute if they have time and if they want to, with their own implementations, bugs, fixes, and everything like that. So more on this page here as far as where we are with 2.0. Now, here's actually, is it this or this? Okay, I'm going to talk about the roadmap in a little bit. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the pull requests. I mentioned this a few moments ago. Every pull request that comes into 1.x should, in theory, have an equivalent pull request in 2.0. Now, so far, maybe a handful of members of the community managed to do this. So the weight comes into the core team to basically pick up the pull request from 1.x, make sure that it works, and then translate that to 2.0. Again, for the reason that I said, that we need to make sure that 2.0 has exactly the same things that 1.x has. Now, we would like, this is a request, but I mean, you cannot force anybody. This is an open source project. We all work on it in our own free time. So you cannot tell anybody, hey, you must do this. What we would like is if people actually follow that rule for the time being until 2.0 is out, so that we can have a lot less things to do and concentrate more on getting 2.0 out in the wild so that everybody can test it and it can become our stable version. Now, one thing that we are thinking about is that we should reject pull requests if they do not have tests attached to them. Again, this is not an obligatory thing. You cannot enforce this because, like I said, everybody works in their own free time. They just love what they're doing. They contribute to this project, and they could easily say, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore, and the project will suffer. But with, I truly believe with that, with a lot of encouragement, a lot of information, a very solid test suite, writing a test to address an issue that one has fixed with a pull request is very simple. So we're going to be working with the community to basically make the submission of a test with a pull request kind of like a no-brainer and something like an obligatory thing, so to speak. So that is in the future what is coming up. Also, a small status update here. We have 20 PRs currently, from very small ones, some text changes, some corrections to the API, auto-generated code, to more serious fixes with segmentation faults or new functionality or something that went wrong. Sadly, all these 20 are not in the 2.0 branch as well, or they do not correspond to the 2.0. This is a rough number. It's not the exact one, but I'm just giving you an idea. We have more than 120 NFRs, and this is extremely encouraging for us because people really want to use the system, the framework, really want to see functionality that is missing, and that would help their development life and make it easier. Those 120 NFRs are to be done. Hopefully, we're going to be able to address some of them before 2.0 is coming out, but I can assure you the bulk of those are going to be addressed once 2.0 is out. We have around 70 bugs in low and medium. A lot of them are edge cases, so we have to sit down and figure out what is going on, figure out where the problem is, and then again make the fix both in 1.x and 2.0. It is a slow process because we don't have a huge amount of time, and as we said before, we are a very, very small development team, but we're not ignoring them. Excuse me, we're not ignoring them. It is something that we have to do, and we will do it. All right, so the final 3 slides is to talk about a little bit about the 2.0 roadmap. So the first thing that we are striving for is all the functionality that 1.x has before the release should be in 2.0. So if somebody wants to migrate for 1.x to 2.0, all they will have to do is just compile the extension, and everything should work right out of the box without any glitches, any hitches, nothing. API is exactly the same. The functionality is exactly the same. That's our goal, and that's why it's a slow process to get from 1.x to 2.0. The second major thing that we are going to do after 2.0 is released is basically split the extension in 2 parts. Phalcon is going to come with 2 compilation modes. One will be just the core framework, and the core framework will be very slim. Right now, if one compiles, for instance, the 2.0 version, they're going to end up with 250 megs or something like that, as far as an extension is concerned. And that is, of course, because we enable a lot of debugging to be in the extension. Of course, the production one will be a lot smaller, but the more and more and more we put in the extension, the more we face the extension becoming slower because it has so much and occupying a lot more space in on your web server. So what are we going to do is we're going to make sure that the core functionality, the most used functions and components are going to be in the core module, and then additional functionality will be in a secondary module. We don't know the name yet, but we're going to figure it out. So we're going to be following what PHP does with its extensions. The core stays the same, and then you enable an extension, let's say the INTL extension or anything else, just to give you this extra functionality. The base example that I can give you is that the bulk of of our users use MySQL or MySQL. I have yet to see somebody using SQLite. I've seen a lot of Postgres, but not that many. So what we can do is we can split, and I'm giving this as an example to give you the idea of what one extension will have and what the other one, the secondary one. So MySQL will be on by default, excuse me, and then in the secondary you will have SQLite, Postgres, Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, Mongo, and whatever else one might think. So if the user uses a plain vanilla system, as we have seen in our statistics, they can just use the core one, and that's the end of it. If one wants to use Postgres, they will have to enable both. Again, once we do this, we have a strong focus on performance. So whether you have one extension or two extensions loaded up, it will make no difference in terms of speed. So the goodies that we have in our roadmap. This is by no means a numbered list of priority. I'm just throwing things down. We might put one before the other, so just take it as it is. So what we're going to do is once 2.0 is out, we're going to have validators, and they're going to be independent of database and forms. So one could effectively use a validator just to validate something from a different component. You won't need to basically tie that with a form or a database field. Let's say the uniqueness validator, or what other validators we have, string validators, and so on and so forth. So this would make things a lot easier. There is going to be the one common interface that people can use in order to basically extend those validators and create their own ones. But the idea is that you have a component and you want, let's say, to use an alphanumeric validator or something like that. You could effectively just inject it in there, and that would be the end of it. It won't have any database bindings or form bindings and so on and so forth. Another thing that has been brought up is the fact that we have audience all around the world, and certain messages are basically embedded in Phalcon. So some of us might have noticed when we made a mistake bootstrapping the application that we're building, it will bring up cyclic redundancy error, or this this action has not been found in controller X, or the messages that the validator offers. All right, these are English-based strings, and they are just being thrown out just on the browser. So the idea is to create some sort of a message component. The name is not important right now. We will figure it out later. And whenever Phalcon throws up a message, a string, it will be a unique code. Imagine something like Phalcon underscore core underscore action underscore not underscore found. Okay. It would also have in its internal mechanisms the basic translation of that particular key, or that particular key is a good word, of that particular key to something that humans can understand in English. However, if your language is different, or if you want to offer the framework, your website, in a different language, all you have to do is just register a component in the DI container that would contain the same key, but the text will be a totally different translation. So then Phalcon, when it has to output text, it will just look at the DI container. Do I have any substituted messages, so to speak? And then it will output it with regards to the language that you wanted. All right, so that's one other thing. We're thinking about a date component to allow people to have very easy manipulation of dates. A very good component about that is the Zen date, and there's a lot of inspiration coming from that. So, adding dates, having dates as adding dates as let's say, give me today plus 2 days, or give me today plus a week. Uh, all these calculations need to be done in the background, and also the state component, the way we envision it, would have localization. So if you're in, let's say, Germany, your dates will appear as day dot month dot year. If you're in the US, they will be month slash day slash year. So there will be this internationalized, localized flavor to it, if you like, to allow people to not worry about dates. A very, very a highly requested component is, or alteration, if you want to call it, is the volt delimiters. Right now, volt uses the curly braces. So let me just put these. And a lot of the people in the community use additional JavaScript libraries, AngularJS, for instance, being one of them. As far as AngularJS is concerned, there is a small workaround that one can use to leave a vault with these, with the curly braces, and change the AngularJS to something else. However, this is not always feasible. Certain frameworks do not allow you to change the interpolation. So what we are going to work on is on a way for people to register Vault, and with that, to change the delimiters that Vault uses. That would allow a more seamless integration between JavaScript libraries and any other custom code that an application might have, and Vault at the same time. And also, last but not least, the PHQL subqueries and more enhancements. The subqueries has been going on for a few versions, and we just didn't have time to sit down and carefully work on it and offer this functionality. This is definitely a 2.0 thing. It might be tackled first, it might be tackled second. I don't know exactly right now. We have to see, once 2.0 is out, we have to see the stability of it, any security enhancements and all that stuff before we start working on that. But this is basically at the top of the list, as well as the volt delimiters. And last but not least, we are going to work a lot on the documentation. It needs a lot of love. We had a lot of people that send us either private messages or through the social media the need for having a more thorough documentation that will cover both the beginner as well as the very advanced user. We also had volunteers that are willing to review the whole documentation and make it proper English, so to speak. We have a lot of people, China, Poland, everywhere you can think of, that have translated and continue to translate the documentation in those languages, which is great. We have an idea about using Transifex to, just like we do in the with the main website, to handle all these translations. But in order for us to do this, we need to create some sort of a small application that would allow us to create RSD files, and then from those create either the documentation as HTML and then EPUB or PDF files. It's still a work in progress. We haven't finalized it. We're nearly there, but there's more to come. So structure-wise, we're not 100% where we want to be, and of course, content-wise, there's a lot of work to be done. And the last part I wanted to touch on is the tests. With 2.0, we are going to be using code deception exclusively for all our tests. it is an extremely awesome framework. I've used it in the past, and I have to admit, I'm still using it actually, and I have to admit that it makes our life extremely easy. The interface is extremely the API is extremely fluent, so all you have to do is just say, I want to test whether the user is logged in, and then you just say, I am in /login. I fill username with this. I fill password with that. I click submit, and it does it in the background. It actually does it for you. And then you can say, I see welcome, Nikos, or something like that. And that actually allows you to say, hey, you know what? It actually went through the whole round trip. It logged me in. I'm good with this test. Let's move on to the next. There's plenty of work to be done here. Of course, we're not gonna, as everybody knows, tests are not something that you do it and you forget it. It's a living, breathing thing. We move on with the tests every single time we create something new, or whenever we find some problems and so on and so forth. And tests actually allow us to ensure that we don't have the same bug appearing again and again in later versions if we fix something. So that's the big announcement here. And for that, like I said before, we are going to create a lot of blog posts, videos for tests, and encourage the community to start using tests. Sadly, a lot of people are still under the notion that, oh, well, I don't have time to write tests. That's the biggest fallacy that I do here. Or tests are difficult to write. Both of those statements are very untrue. Tests are not difficult to write. All one has to do is just say, okay, what do I expect this function to do, or this piece of code to do? And I simulate a method call or something like that that would come from my application. So if I have, let's say, a function that adds things, if I said 1 and 1 as two parameters, do I get 2? That's a very simple test. Yeah, of course, there are very complex tests after that when you go to integration, when you go to functionality, and so on and so forth. But the idea is that if you have a component that that does a task, you need to make sure that that task is what you want. We're all humans. We just make mistakes. It's inevitable, and testing actually allows us to ensure that we don't have any problems with it. As far as codeception is concerned, let me just see if I can find something. I do have a project that I'm working on, and right now, and this is basically what I'm working on right now with codeception. I just enabled the with coverage flag. So if I want, let's say, to test, as you can see, I'm getting there. It's not perfect, but if I go to my shared namespace, if I go to my library, and then I have this, you see my model mapper class has 100%, well, near 100% coverage, and I can click on that, and I can just say, well, you know what? This has been tested, this has been tested, but this particular piece of code, this one here, has not been tested. So that gives me a pointer to create a test that will test this part, and what I put in the get parameters, I will get the default. So these little tools that we have, and codeception for really helps. It actually gives you the crap, the change risk anti-pattern index. So how bad your code is, it's very nicely mentioned there. But it gives you an idea of how much of your code has been executed. As you can see, I don't have that much executed on these. Uh, it's primarily because I run a, a subset of my test suite. The rest of my test suite does test that. So the idea is when we do have Phalcon in Codeception, we're going to be running our whole report here, and we should be getting 100% coverage as well, as close as possible. The key here is that Codeception is not going to be able to parse Phalcon because it's not PHP code, it's an extension, but it could actually give us more statistics in terms of what has been tested and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's all I had to present. Let me just close the screen share, I think. There you go. So any questions, any comments are more than welcome.
Oh, there's a lot of work to do, man.
No,
Congratulations.
that I know. I know. We have a lot of work to do, and you know the thing that I did, I do wish at times is that, you know, wouldn't it be great if somebody came over and just said, you know what, don't worry about you know, paying your bills. I'm gonna be paying you. All you have to do is just work for Phalcon.
Oh.
That would be that would be the dream, right? But you know, we do have a work to do. I know Andres, Eduard are extremely busy. Eduard also has his little ones and his family that he has to take care of as well as I do. So it is a very careful balance as to how much we can devote on this project and how much we can do. The extremely encouraging thing that we do see is a constant stream of posts in the forum. A lot of people are picking up, and we don't have to answer any questions. They just go like, boom, there you go. This is how you do this, which is extremely great. I mean, I love it the minute I see it. In GitHub, again, we have a kind of like a small explosion of NFRs and suggestions and bug fixes, PRs, and everything like that. So it is great. I mean, think about it. Phalcon came from a very small subset of functions up until 0.4 to 1.3, and that's within a year and a half. If you look at the history of other frameworks and you take the lines of code per developer, you're going to see that a handful of developers managed to get where huge teams haven't gone there in double the time. So we're extremely grateful for the community that helped us to do this, and also extremely grateful for everybody that uses the software, because that actually drives us to make it better. So.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, while you was introducing the slides, I've just noted some stuff to ask. But first of all, there's just one question that I would like to say. Where is everybody?
I don't know.
It's just you and me. Okay,
I don't know. I did post it.
Oh man, it's going to be only us two here. Oh.
I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the event, and we have around what, 16 people that said that they're gonna come over. Yeah, just a bit shy of 20 or something. But hey, you know, they're not there. They're not here, so nothing we can do.
Yep, lots of people confirmed, but okay. 21. Oh, lots of people, yep.
Yeah.
Well, okay. let me see. Nikos, there are some
Sir.
questions that I would like to ask here.
Okay.
And so
Go for it.
I will enjoy that there's no one besides me to ask him questions. So okay, let's go. When you say the plans ahead, the 2.0 about
Hmm.
split Phalcon into two extensions, you
Yes.
you said about okay, the first extension will be the core that will be based on MySQL. Oh, that's fine. Then you say the second extension will be based to older databases as Postgre and SQLite
Hmm.
and goes on. Um, are
That's just an
you?
example, right? Uh,
Hmm?
that's just an example. It might not be that, but this is what we're thinking of right now. Of course, any decision that we make, we are going to communicate it with the community.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All
It's
right.
not. It's not. We just said that this is going to happen. That's going to happen. It's not a, a
Mhm.
dictatorship here.
Yeah, that was okay. Just fine. I wasn't thinking about it.
Okay.
I've just been curious. They will be big, or they could be installed as simple PGP extensions individually, or just one extension to load everything.
No, it will be two individual ones.
Oh,
So
nice.
exactly the same way that you go compile it and then you make sure that you have a falcon.ini and then you just say extension equals falcon.so and then you reboot you restart your web server. There will be something like, and I'm just making this up, right? It will be something like falcon underscore additional dot so, something like that. That's what we're thinking of.
Nice.
So
Um,
effectively, you don't load, let's say, 50 megabytes of memory, the whole framework, and you use a small part of it. You're gonna load, let's say, 10 megabytes, which is the core, and then if you need the extra, you can just use that.
okay. There's something that I would like to ask
Hmm.
that's not included in the presentations. That's something I
Okay.
just remember a few minutes ago. JetBrains, the producer of PHP Storm. PHP Storm was one of the first or the main idea around here that introduced the plugin to use the autocomplete and stuff called Phalcon into the idea.
Hmm.
Uh,
The stubs, you mean,
mhm.
to show you
Uh,
where you should be going. Yeah.
with the changes to 2.0, I know that probably this is work that JetBrains will do, but with the change to 2.0, there will be some differences in the steps to autoload on the PHP Storm, or that's something that had to be discussed after all the changes.
Are you talking about the auto completion
Yep.
of PHP Storm? All right, the auto completion is something that Falcon did. It's not a PHP Storm
Oh.
thing. It comes from the. All right, there's two auto completions in PHP Storm, and I'm saying this because I use it every day, right?
Mhm.
The first one is the Vault auto completion, and all you have to do is basically um, uh, go into the settings and just say that find the Twig engine and auto completion. And instead of having only as an extension star.twig, you just add below it star.volt. And immediately you can start typing in volt and it will give you the curly bracket percent and then it would just expand it and so on and so forth. So that's one. The second one is when you're actually typing PHP code and you're saying, all right, now I want to use this component and it tries to autocomplete. It gives you the methods of that component. All right, these are basically what we call the PHP stubs, and they come from the development tools of Phalcon. I'm trying to find where it is right now. Um, and all you have to do is just figure out where it is. There you go. Um, so I'm gonna put this in the chat so you can see it. All right. So, uh, so Philip Jackson is actually sent us a Q&A. He says he honestly cannot figure out how to connect his webcam to the Hangout.
Oh.
So he just cannot connect. But he's watching us. So if you go to the chat module, um, this is the area where we actually put the stubs in Phalcon tools. And if you click on, let's say, 1.3.1 and you go to where it says Phalcon, you're going to see the whole structure of Phalcon itself, right? And this is what PHP Storm is reading in order to give you that autocomplete. So once we split the, let's say the extension into two, or once we offer more functionality, or once we do something else, all we have to do is just go and change the stubs, and the user, all they have to do is just do a git pull, right? So with the git pull, then you're going to get the latest one from the dev tools, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure if a lot of people are using git pull or if they're using Composer or whatever for the Phalcon tools. But personally, what I do is I have one folder where I just pull the repository once a day or whenever it makes any changes. So that way I'll only have the latest and greatest of the PHP stubs.
Nice. I believe that the pull with Git is the most practical way to do this.
Some people are intimidated, and I have to admit I was intimidated in the past because I came from Visual Source Safe. That's how old it was. And then we went to
I remember this. I remember this.
Yeah, and then we went to SVN. All right, so I was more into SVN than anything else. But then in my current job, when I was working in a PHP project, we decided to go to Git, and it was a pain to just figure out how it works. But once you get the logic of it, it's basically a no-brainer. Roman has a question: are you guys going to clean up the old versions? I presume you're talking about the dev tools, the 0.4 to 1.2.6. Yes, it is going to happen. What we are going to have is basically two branches, two subfolders, if you like. One will be 1.x, and that's what people that want to use 1.3, 1.3.1, 0.2, 0.4, whatever. And the other one will be 2.0. And we're going to try and figure out how the structure helps the community. We just left those as they are, not necessarily for sentimental reasons. I could claim it's sentimental reasons, but the reality is that nobody ever asked this question before, so we just left it there. So we want to basically change all those and clean it up, definitely. Next one, Navi, or Thomas, or Roman. Thank you guys for joining.
Okay, Thomas, Roman. Okay, I would like to ask about the date component that planning to beyond 2.0. You told Nikos that the most inspiration about the new date components will be the Zen date. Just a bit of question. Why choose a Zen date and not choose the classical datetime component that's loaded with the PGP?
And Roman actually has the same questions. Why do you want to replicate PHP, INTL, and datetime? We don't, actually. We don't want to replicate anything that's already there. So it's kind of like the if it's not broken, why try to fix it? Okay. The list that I showed you is just something that we've been thinking about. We are going to go through the process of putting all those into GitHub and or into the forum most likely, and letting people plus one or upvote, whatever you want to call it, the features that they would like most. We've done this many times in the past. I think 2 versions back to back were primarily driven by this. The community said, okay, well, I want A versus B. So it's just an idea. Yeah, the INTL is a great component. Datetime is also a great component. I don't know. I mean, we were just thinking about it out loud. I know that for sure our core focus is for subqueries, PHQL subqueries, and the Vault delimiters. These are the 2 most requested things, and they are going to be addressed first. And after that, we can just talk about anything. I mean, there's also been a discussion at some point for a mail component. Do we really want a mail component? Can I just download Swift Mail or something like that and do that? Or do I want to use everything Phalcon? The only argument that I have against that, against a mail component, and I'm just talking out loud here, is a mail component primarily relies on network traffic rather than resource of your web server. So if you have a slow network and you cannot connect to your mail server, the component is going to be slow. Simple as that. So these are just thoughts right now. This is what we're thinking about doing. So it's not necessarily that it's all going to be materialized.
Okay. I've thought about datetime because I didn't thought it about to consume the component itself, or directly write the component itself, or okay, let's write something new to not use datetime. Let's do a new datetime. No, I thought about using datetime basic as a component to build another thing, to build a real component, because datetime API itself, it's not. There's some parts that are easy to use. There's other parts that are a little too hard for some people. I've got it from people that work with PHP something about 10 years around that are working, and they still say datetime is one of the most complicated libraries to use in PHP. And when I read that, I said, "Oh, okay. Okay, there's some parts are difficult. There are some parts that are easy. Okay, that's nice." So I've always looked at datetime, thinking, "Okay, that's a good component, but I can get this component and use another layer to get some easy to use to everybody."
Well, again, this is going to be a discussion. Phalcon is extremely community-driven. We do want our users, our colleagues, to use the components themselves. And this is where Zephyr comes in. If we decide to go ahead with the date component, right? We could look at what datetime offers. We could look at what INTL offers. We could look at what X offers. And we can say, okay, there is value in creating a brand new component that will give you the best of all worlds, right? And then with Zephyr, a small team of the community can actually go in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that we're not going to do it. I'm not saying that we are going to do it. What I'm saying is that once 2.0 is out, we're going to have a lot more discussions as to where we want the framework to go itself as far as new components and new functionality. It could very well be that it's just the 4 of us that think that this is a valid component, and that's about it. And if we want to do something about it for ourselves, we could just fire up Zephyr and just make the changes ourselves, and then if we want, we can just outsource it or not. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be part of the core framework. However, with Zephyr, I do see the incubator becoming an extension itself. Because right now, we have the core framework which is a Phalcon.so, right, or a DLL. So you just load it up on your browser. Anything extra that's in the incubator, it's PHP based, right? Now, bringing Zephyr into the mix, one could actually submit a Zephyr-based implementation of what is in the incubator. So effectively, we all gain by this because we could compile the incubator or the components of the incubator and have them sitting as extensions in our browser, in our web server. So there's a lot of things that we could do here. Um, Time will tell. The community will basically decide what the best way forward is. If it's going to be just, let's say, the four of us that decide that this is a good idea to move forward, fine. We can just go ahead and do it, and then outsource it. Will it go into the core framework? I don't know right now. So.
Okay, nice. That was the main questions I've described around here. There's just one more thing that I would like to say that I would like to congratulate and about something that was published yesterday about
Mhm.
GitHub and GIST now recognizes Zephyr as the highlight
Nice.
syntax. That's amazing.
Nice. I didn't.
That's
I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I actually the
no.
latest,
Oh
the
man.
greatest that I saw was PHP Architect has an article in this month
Okay.
for Falcon, which is
Let me just
great.
grab. Okay, let me just grab the link. Oh, I break the news. Okay. Oh man.
So we're very excited. We do get traction. A lot of people are talking about Falcon, which is great. Um, So I didn't know about that. I'm just gonna figure it out once we finish with this, and then I'm gonna post it on Google Plus or Facebook. Question from Thomas, which we've covered it before you came, most likely, Thomas. Um, do you consider in the future to move some components to small packages, or Falcon should be one big PHP extension, for example, ORM? We had a small presentation before you guys came up. I don't know if you managed to watch it before you joined. And the slides are going to be available on most likely on our Google Drive. So the idea is when 2.0 is going to be released, we're going to basically split the framework into two. One will be just the core, and I'll explain what that is, and the other one will be everything else. So the example that I can give you, and this by no means is something that it's a must that's going to happen. We have to have a lot of discussions on how we're going to separate this. But the idea is that most of the users use, let's say, MySQL, right? So the core will have the ORM MySQL on it. And then if you want to use Postgres, or if you want to use, let's say, SQLite or Mongo or anything else, you're going to add the additional or the advanced, whatever you want to call that. So the secondary. Um, we're not going to do a very advanced splitting, if you want to call it. You're mentioning splitting into packages where people are going to be loading everything. For instance, taking the whole ORM and making one big package and just have that there, and then taking, let's say, the DI container and the loader and have two other packages and so on and so forth. We're not going to do that. The reason behind this is a lot of people are having problems right now just loading the framework and just following the installation. It is somewhat difficult for certain people to just go with that. If you go on and say, well, you know what, in order to load Phalcon, you have to put all these SOs into your INI file so that your what you call it, your Apache or Nginx can load them. Maybe in the future, I don't know, with the introduction of Zephyr, one can actually pick the DB component, just compile that, and have just that. But for the time being, this is the split that we're thinking of. Just leave the core component and leave the least used components on a secondary extension. So that's the idea. Oh, nice. Davi, thank you for that. That's so cool.
Yeah, but and I've tested it yesterday already, and yeah, it's working just fine.
Nice. Roman, yes, work on Zephyr is still going. Is still going on. There's more things that are coming up. We have, I think, 3 or 4 people that are continuously adding on it and producing new NFRs and fixing bugs. It's not by any mean the perfect language. We still have certain things to figure out, and of course introduce more enhancements. But so far, the code generated by Zephyr, as far as Phalcon 2 is concerned, is relatively stable. I mean, it's an early beta. Personally, I've tested it on a couple of my projects. Yeah, a couple of components are not there. Because we just didn't have the time to fix them, but for the most part, it works fine. There had been many articles that I read from people actually building things with Zephyr. Actually, a few days ago, I read that somebody created a Zephyr component for Elasticsearch. I think it's in the forums somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. No. Yeah, it's called Celastica. It's an Elasticsearch client in Zephyr. So there's one of our users in the forum. Let me just post this in the chat. So he basically built an Elasticsearch client using Zephyr. So this is basically what you see, and you get more encouraged to move forward. The more these keep on coming in, the more features we're going to be adding into Zephyr and just making sure that nothing goes wrong. At the moment, Zephyr generates code that it's relatively fast, and I'm saying this because not that it's not fast, but it's relatively fast. Once we get 2.0 out, there's going to be a huge focus on making sure that Zephyr produces the most performance-based code. There's room for improvement always. So right now we have one basically, how shall I put it, conservative approach towards optimizations. Be careful, Roman. So once we have everything, be careful, man. Once we have everything sorted out as far as stability is concerned and everything being ported out, then we're gonna boost performance by a lot. The early tests that we have so far with Zephyr versus non-Zephyr versions, we're pretty much in par. So Phalcon 1.x is a little bit faster than Phalcon 2.0. And this is basically on what this relies on what Zephyr produces. So there's more to come on that. Both projects are very, very much alive, and we do have a lot of things to add. So, yay!
Nice.
Thomas, I don't know if you saw this. If you caught the 2.0 is going to have Codeception as the testing platform. So that should make you smile. And we're going to add more and more and more things as far as tests are concerned. There's also the idea that, and I'm repeating myself here for those that just joined, we are going to try and enforce, in quotes, or encourage the community for every NFR or for every bug fix and all that stuff, a new test to be introduced or more tests to be introduced. I mean, you and I know more than anybody else, I guess, or no disrespect to anybody, of course, that testing is our lives. So that's where we want to go. More tests and more coverage of the code, just to ensure that we don't have we don't have any bugs coming up. So, any other comments?
I believe that for me, there's just one comment. Not actually, that is just a question. Maybe just a personal question. Just to make sure, your birthday was last week or just Google
4 days
Plus,
ago.
or
1, 2, 3, 4 days ago, 22.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if Google Plus was just crazy nuts and telling that
No.
birthday. Okay, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. One more year, man. I'm feeling old. You know, the shoulder hurts, the knee hurts, everything. Christy, I'm gonna come to you in just a sec. Yeah, what's up?
No, something that I was thinking about. If Christy just typed the question right there, I believe that just to clarify things, I believe that when you, Nikos, were showing the slides, I believe that was only me watching the slides, so
Yeah.
that's why Thomas and Roman were asking questions.
I'm gonna make the slides available for everybody, and of course the Hangout will be on YouTube, so whoever wants to watch it again or listen to it again, it will be there. But we are going to have it. Christy, there's plenty of applications as far as new stuff is concerned, as far as bootstrapping and skeleton applications. There's some in the Phalcon repository. There's a lot of them going around. If you look at the forum, it's got at least 2 or 3 that I can think of that have been posted. Now, I've always been a firm believer that you always use the right tool for the right job, and Phalcon is no exception. But even if you decide to use Phalcon for your application, every application must not be bootstrapped exactly the same. For instance, there is, let's say you have 2 applications, one API, one web. Bootstrapping an API application is not necessarily the same as bootstrapping a web application. There's a lot of components that you really don't need on an API. So what I would encourage you to do is just pick up one of the samples. There's let's say grab the website repository, right? Have a look at how we bootstrap things, and then decide based on your own application and your own needs how you need things to work out. Additionally, in the forum, there's plenty of people that will answer to you. Everybody's going to have their own opinion and how they want things to happen. You can also look at Phalcon I. It's I think Ivan is it's Lantian. I'm gonna post this in a sec. You can also look at Thomas's Nest project. He uses Solid, although it's not production based, but it can give you good ideas. where I'm getting at is you are the one that decides whether this application needs X or Y. That nobody else. Whether you hear people saying, "Oh, you must not do this," you just take it as an advice. Don't take it as a must. Every application is different, even if they focus on the same thing. So I've always been a firm believer that you have to have the right tool for the right job. And even if you use exactly the same tool, you have to have a totally different approach in order to address the specific needs of a specific application. So let me quickly grab, what is it, GitHub, Atlantean? Yes. All right, so this is Phalcon I. This is a CMS written in Phalcon. There's a lot of good practices here, a lot of good ideas that you can get. Let me try and remember. This is Thomas, who is also in the Hangout. Nest. True, I agree with that, Thomas. But all right, give me a sec, Christy. I agree with that, Thomas. But there are some really great practices that you can see in coding style and how things are done. And you might not pick up, let's say, Nest and just throw it in your web browser, change the config, and it works. But you could actually study the code and learn certain things, how they're done, even if that means, all right, let me see how the base folder, the base root folder or the configuration is defined. So I always love to see different implementations because it gets my imagination going on, and then I can see different things, how people think about these things. Maybe similar to components so that I can share between different projects. What you could do is you could have a library folder, Christy, and then in that library folder you create a namespace. Let's say your folder is library, let's say Christy, that's it, that's your namespace. And then you have, let's say, a component that says hello.php, all right? And your namespace is Christy, right? There you go.
Nicholas,
and the yes,
I don't want to interrupt you, but I believe that you are typing, but the screen where you're typing, it's not showing on the video. We're only seeing your face.
It's in the chat, in the
you're
group
just
chat.
talking. Oh, in the group chat. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah. So so that's your namespace, Christy, right? You can have a project that is located somewhere in your web browser, and then all you have to do is basically register your namespace, the /Christy, and then have access to those common components without them being visible by anything. And you can have all those in one go, kind of like a common library. Does that make sense? Let me see if I have something here. Give me just a sec. There you go. All right. So this is just a sample application that I wrote months ago, right? Oh, well, a year ago. All right. If you look at this folder here in the app, you're going to see controllers, models, var, views, and the library folder. The library folder doesn't necessarily need to be under the app. It could be somewhere else. But in the Bootstrap, when you're bootstrapping and when you're instantiating the loader, you can register the directory where your library resides, and then whatever your own application needs. And then you can have common components. In this particular example, let's say if you go and see the NDN namespace, if you drill down a little bit, you're going to see a, a class called debug or in a class called breadcrumbs. These could be used effectively in every application that I have, and that could be my component library. And I can just dump them in a folder where I can access them from any library that I need, from any application that I need. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Cool. Any other questions, suggestions, comments? Yes, no, we're 1 hour and 15 in. So I did allocate 2 hours. But
We still have a lot of time. Let me see. I just want to just want to bring back a question that we've discussed in the last Hangout. Somebody asked about Phalcon T-shirts.
Yes, Phalcon T-shirts. Okay, you're just driving me nuts, all of you. All right. I looked into different vendors, and one of them is Cafe Press, and one of them is Zazzle. Both of these guys actually create a T-shirt when you ask for it. Okay, Christy and Roman, just give me a moment, okay? So effectively, the problem is that if I want to sell, let's say I'm gonna take $100 from my pocket and just go and buy some T-shirts and just send them out, okay? Whoever wants to buy it. When you have a sticker, it's pretty easy. There's only one size or two sizes or whatever, and that's about it. People decide A or B. When you have a T-shirt, you might want an XL or a medium or different T-shirt color. You want it in black, in blue, in white, and so on and so forth. So for one individual to go and purchase T-shirts and just send them out, you're going to have a lot of capital, a lot of money put into a few boxes, and it's going to take you a long time to actually sell them and make the profit back, or at least cover the investment, the money that you spend buying those T-shirts, right? That's one. And two, guys, I don't have time to do T-shirt management. Okay, so I'm looking into either Cafe Press or Zazzle. Most likely, it's gonna be Zazzle. We're gonna open a store of sorts where people can actually go and buy mugs, or I don't know, iPhone cases or stuff like that. Companies like Cafe Press or Zazzle, basically they get the request from you, and they put it in the computer, and the T-shirt is being printed right there and then. They don't keep stock, and that's how they keep their costs very low. So of course I don't want a T-shirt to cost $40, right? So I'm going to try and find a reasonably good quality T-shirt, and then cheap. I mean, I know from my own, I bought Zen Framework T-shirts in the past, and they did last me for 3-4 years, which was great, and that's what I want, you know, something to last for people. Okay.
That's great.
Christy, what about more work on the documentation? Any plans on that? This came as a comment when I was doing the presentation, and it was just Davi and myself. Again, the presentation slides are going to be available on the Google Drive, and you guys are going to have access to them. We definitely need a lot of work on documentation. There's two aspects of it. First of all is the contents of the documentation, and the second is the infrastructure of the documentation. We're nearly done. There's a little bit of work to be done with the infrastructure. Basically, what we want to do is we want to use transifex to allow people to translate a lot easier in different languages. But in order for us to do that, we have to make sure that the documents are being generated properly as HTML pages, but also have the option to put them as an EPUB or as PDF. There's also we also had the discussion about creating them in one huge document in one page, or chapters, or the way it is right now. These are just discussions on how we're going to do it. But the idea is that first we need to finish the infrastructure, meaning an easy way for people to navigate through the documentation and also to translate the documentation. Okay, so that's part A. Part B, and I had a lot of emails on this, is the actual content. A lot of people are complaining that it's too advanced. A lot of people are complaining that it's too beginner. So what we want to do is we want to go through the documentation with a fine-tooth comb, and there is one of the guys that works with a framework. He's actually a technical author, and he volunteered to help us write it so that it's proper English. It addresses all, let's say, beginner, medium, and advanced users with various examples, so on and so forth. And it is accurate, because there are places in the documentation that documentation says A, but reality is B. I mean, we know that. Sadly, it is a reality. So once we're done with technical stuff, infrastructure, documentation-wise, then we're going to concentrate on the content. And from then on, we're going to request from the community a lot of input on how we can make the documents as clear and concise for any kind of user as possible. Introduce more examples. Sometimes, even I was frustrated, and some of the documents I wrote them. EDA, sorry, I cannot give you an EDA right now. It's one of the million things that we're working on right now, but it is kind of like high on the list. I don't know. Without promising something definite, I'll try and get the infrastructure done within the next week or two. Talk to Andres and have everything done, and then start working on the core, the content itself. And of course, there will be blog posts and announcements on Google+, Facebook, and so on and so forth, for people to rally around and just make sure that the documentation is as rich as possible for any kind of user. I'm thinking, I understand that. I understand exactly what you're talking about, and like I said, even I have been frustrated when I saw that either the documentation was lacking on what I wanted to do, or the documentation was not correct. So I don't know, probably in a month, just start doing everything. Maybe 1.3.2 around there. Definitely, we need to have the best documentation possible once 2.0 goes out. Even if we have to devote a whole month to just work on document day after day after day, and delay 2.0 for a month, that's fine. Roman, are you going to introduce an incubator for Zephyr? Yes, absolutely. How do you plan people to contribute Zephyr components? There's two ways that we can do this, either by an incubator for Zephyr, as you called it, so that, and effectively the current incubator will become a Zephyr-based incubator, right? We could also have some sort of a page that is generated by pull requests, and if, let's say, Roman creates a component that he wants to outsource to open source, then he can do whatever work he wants, have it on his GitHub, Bitbucket, whatever, and then just issue a pull request on that particular page so that we can add this, so that people can go and have a look at what components are available as far as the feeder is concerned. We could effectively talk about create some sort of a database. I don't know. Right now, we're very early stages, but absolutely we need to promote everybody's work on Zephyr and every component available through Zephyr to everybody else. Case in point, the Elasticsearch component that was built by Aris Kemper on GitHub, which is a great example. I mean, he at the time he did it, which is awesome. To be quite frank with you, I did try and play around a little bit with the Amazon Web Services, but I didn't have much time after that. So, yeah, web catalog for extensions, absolutely. I don't know, something like a searchable list. I want to find something that has to do with mail. What is out there with mail, or something that has to do with AWS or something like that. And you can just browse the repos and all that stuff. So I remember seeing something. Let me just see if it still exists. All right, an example of what I was thinking of is this. The build with angularjs.org. Effectively, people build things with AngularJS, and they submit their application. Imagine not an Angular application, imagine something like a Zephyr extension. So you could actually put tags on it and do whatever you want to do, and this would give you some sort of a database that you can search on what's out there already. What I also want to do is, and this has been an idea that I've been toying around for a long time. We do have a page on GitHub that says powered by Phalcon. Sadly, not many people even know that it exists. I mean, I even had people asking me, all right, what are the sites that use Phalcon? Do you have any examples? And when I would tell them, hey, have a look at that page, they would go, oh, I never knew that existed. So doing something like this, that built in with AngularJS.org, for Phalcon, we could effectively have one database that has, let's say, Thomas's application that he built, and not necessarily outsourced, but he could say, well, I built this website and it's running in Phalcon, or I built that website, or I have this sample and it's open sourced, you can go and get it. And equally, one can turn around and say, well, now let me flip over to the filter with Zephyr components. So this kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense. But that's my idea of how we could help more and more people getting involved with this and getting as much information as possible. All right. Any other questions or? Silence in the audience. All right.
Yes, the import silence.
Unless we have any other questions, I'm just going to cut this short. We're close to an hour and a half, which is not short. I've been blabbering for an hour and a half.
Well, Nicholas, I believe that I was the guy that made the most dumbest questions here about t-shirts and about stuff. And yes, I'm running out of questions. Yeah.
That's good.
I believe I just keep shut my mouth and stop doing this swimming question.
That's awesome.
And I
That's
would like
awesome.
to thank for this new opportunity to talk and
Mhm.
everything that you've shared about the new plans about Falcon. That's
Yeah,
really awesome, and
absolutely.
everything looks really promising. Everything.
Absolutely. Uh, there will be, of course, a blog post on this. All the resources that I gave here are going to be available, plus this Hangout as well once it gets posted directly on YouTube. Um, so once we have that, at least the community will know where we are, where we stand, what we want to do, and what is our view for the future. Um, I intend on making this at least a once a month, kind of like community hangout. Just let's sit down, talk about Phalcon. What are the problems that we have? What ideas we can exchange. I truly believe in looking at people through a webcam is awesome because it's warmer than just typing on the keyboard and posting it on a forum. Um, so yeah, you should expect more of these to come up. And definitely great points about the documentation. Uh, One could build almost an entire application as a Zephyr compiler. Yes, yes, absolutely, that is possible. The question that I have for you is, why would you want to do that? Other than obfuscate your code, right? Um, the There are certain. I'm answering now to Christy. One could build almost an entire application as a Zephyr compiled as C extensions, except the front end. Um, why would you want to do that? Yes, faster and faster. I agree to that, but uh, there is always the cost versus reward. So um, the general idea is that you try and fix 20% of the problems that will give you 80% of the output. Okay. This is the Pareto law. If you're trying to fix 80% of the problems that you have uh, and get only 20%, then you didn't invest very well. Okay. Uh, so let's take your application that you're saying, okay, well, we could put it in Zephyr. Fine. Let's take your application. And you look at your application, you're saying, okay, I have certain things that are slow. Let's say the communication between my client, which is your browser, and the controller. And that communication right now is, let's say, at 1 millisecond. Okay. And then I have another problem, the database access, the ORM, and that one is 10 milliseconds. Now, clearly, if you fix the 10 millisecond issue, then immediately you've increased the performance of your application by a tenfold. Okay, versus if you're trying to reduce the 1 millisecond to 1 nanosecond on the UI, it's not going to give you that much of a problem, right? So uh, you have to also acknowledge the fact that you have to be 100% sure on what you did is spot on, it's perfect, and put everything in Zephyr. If you want to obfuscate your application, if you have something that it's your intellectual property and you want to sell to other people, but you don't want them to steal your code and just go rampant and start another company and compete with you, you could do that with Zephyr, but you could also do it with other programs like IonCube or ZenGuard and so on and so forth. So there's plenty of choices there. What I could see in building something in Zephyr is the component that is basically the slowest one in your application. Okay, that the minute you take that and put it in Zephyr, you're gonna see immediate change. and immediate performance boost. Refactoring and thinking it over a lot better, and just making sure that you're not doing something stupid, which we all have done, and we will all do again. I mean, we're not perfect. We learn from our mistakes, and we just make sure that we don't do them again. And I speak from vast experience here. um, I'll give you the example. There was uh, who was it? I don't think it was Davi, but it was somebody else that told me. Um, Basically, they went into this person went into some PHP conference, and Matthew Weir-Finney from Zen Framework, the lead designer of Zen Framework, was there. And this has been a few months back. And they asked him, "What do you think about Zephyr?" Right? Because Zephyr was not even out yet. You could just create a hello world, and that was it. So basically, Matthew turned around and said that they are seriously considering of rewriting their events manager for Zen Framework 2.0 in Zephyr. And why is that important? Because if you Google the events manager of Zen Framework 2.0, you're going to find horror stories, people just saying that it's dead slow, that it doesn't work very well, and so on and so forth. So by Matthew just saying this, not necessarily that he will do it, he's realizing that this particular component is the one that basically slows my whole application down. It's my 80%. It's the one problem that if I fix it, I'm going to get a boost of 80% or something. So this is what you should look into your application. If you have time and you want to build your whole application in Zephyr, by all means, go for it. But you have to always think about the 1 hour that I put in to do something should equate to X amount of money. All right, so effort versus reward. If you put in 10 hours and you got only $10 as a reward, then that wasn't a good investment. So if you want to do it for just for the fun of it, by all means, you could. But that's how I think personally. It's always a cost and a reward thing. And the most expensive thing right now in our lives is our time. So we have to just put it where it will give us the most benefit. Does that make sense? Um, uh, how much does what about using Zephyr for application like games and such? I'm not sure how much Zephyr can be scaled. Um, how much can you scale the INTL extension or the any extension that you can think of in PHP? It's the same thing. It's just an extension. So think about it this way. Zephyr in its own self is not going to do anything. You'll have to have a web server that loads it up. So Zephyr will give you the X performance that you need, but in order for you to serve your data towards your clients, you will need more infrastructure in terms of load balancers, new web servers, and so on and so forth. And then you can just load Zephyr in the background, the extension of Zephyr. Zephyr itself is just a language. It doesn't do anything on its own. It doesn't have a web server. It doesn't do anything. It's just as the just-in-time runtime to help you while you're developing. But it's not going to do anything other than create a DLL or an SO which you can load up in your web server. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely what Thomas wrote. Some complex algorithms in games in Zephyr will give you a boost to comparing writing it in PHP. Yeah, absolutely. And this is where I'm getting at to the 2080 rule. If you find out that your complex algorithm is the thing that slows you down, write that in Zephyr, dump it in your web browser, immediately you see the response, the faster and faster. uh, that you will require. How it compare to an optimized C code? Zephyr, right now, it can't. It's not the code that Zephyr produces right now is not fully optimized C code. I don't know if it will ever get to that point. Uh, it, my best guess that it will always be a little bit behind than fully optimized C code. The idea behind Zephyr is just to build PHP extensions and to help with Phalcon 2.0. Now, the side effect is that because you can build to PHP extensions, you can use it for other projects, which is great. Right now, this particular version of Zephyr does not produce the fastest code available. It produces medium-sized, so to speak. And I mentioned this before when Davi and I were just sitting drinking coffee here, the two of us. What we did is we basically try to make sure that it's stable. And so far, it's reasonably stable. We haven't seen any hiccups. The code generated should be equally stable. If you take, let's say, Phalcon 2.0 and Phalcon 1.x, they're kind of like in par. 2.0 is slightly slower right now. Our goal is to bring Zephyr, once 2.0 is released, is to bring Zephyr in such a state where it can create the most optimized code possible for the particular scenario that one is developing. That's where we want to go with Zephyr. Right now, we're not there. Simple. If you want to compare, let's say we reach that point and Zephyr can produce the most optimized code that it could produce. If we get to that point and you compare that to a fully optimized C code, still Zephyr is going to be slower because there's certain things that you can and you cannot do with Zephyr, and there's certain things that you can and you cannot do with just C code. To give you an example, in C code, you could basically optimize your extension up to the yin-yang. But because Zephyr has to be some sort of universal, it has to follow, let's say, a certain path. And your C code could very well be handling an edge case. So that's where you're going to have the discrepancy. Most likely, we're going to be talking about milliseconds, if not nanoseconds, but still that is performance. We're hoping that in a year, maybe a little bit more, we could have Zephyr as close to purely optimized C code as possible. There's always work to be done, of course. Thank you for coming, Thomas. All right, that concludes it. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been a blast, even though it was just Davi and myself. Traitors, all of you. You left me here with him. He was asking all the difficult questions. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for all your input, all your help, and for using Phalcon. And we'll definitely do this again very soon. Absolutely next month. But if we manage to get something going earlier, I will let you all know. All right.
Great.
Bye, all.
Bye-bye. Thank you for the hangout.
Okay.
Bye. See all people.
See you guys.